Hey guys, it's David Pingree out here at Milestone Raceway today for the launch of the 2019 Yamaha YZ250F. And this thing is new from the ground up. I'm really excited to get on this thing and give it a try. I sat down and got a presentation from these guys, and there's so much information, so many things new. I'm probably going to miss some of the little updates, but I'll try to run through them with you as best I can here. A lot of updates to the engine. The thing's sitting a little bit more upright. They got a piston that's higher compression. They've got a new CNC machined head where the valve seats are, just for a smoother transition there. The exhaust is actually straightened out to increase a little bit more high-end, high RPM performance, and still got the downdraft design and the real symmetrical straight flow through there. So the design that's been so successful for them is still there. Bigger air box up here that allows them to flow more air. New exhaust system. They've got new mappings, obviously. It's all electric start for this year, which is new cases and all that. Bigger clutch in order to accommodate more horsepower that they've created. They've actually gone to a bigger clutch, larger diameter, got rid of a fiber and a steel, but overall it's more surface area, better performance out of the clutch. So just a lot going on with this new engine. All the transmission is same gearing and everything, just made out of a higher tensile steel, so it's more durable. They know that a lot of privateers are racing this bike in Supercross, and in order to take that abuse, they wanted to just make sure they weren't going to have a failure there. So they really went above and beyond designing this thing and putting a lot of work into the motor to make sure this is still sort of the class leader. So a lot of good things going into this engine. The radiators have also been moved in and slanted forward, trying to make more room here where they could narrow the bike up. One of the complaints they got about both bikes is that they just felt a little wide up front. So the whole thing is slimmer. The seat is slimmer, is narrower, and it's lower. A lot of times, guys last year were having to run taller sag numbers to get the back end to feel like where they wanted, which then gives you kind of a choppered feel and a vague feeling with the front. So they've done what a lot of race teams do and just lowered the back of the the subframe seat. All that has dropped down like 16 millimeters. It's significant. And so they're hoping you can go back to 100 mils like they recommend, have the bike feel balanced, and have it work the way it's supposed to work. Again, we'll give that a try here shortly and get back to you. New frame on this bike. They've basically just worked towards more rigidity, more vertical rigidity, significantly improved torsional rigidity, and all of that's geared towards giving the bike a more positive feel. In the past, there was a lot of throw forward and back when you got on the gas or got on the brakes. They're trying to eliminate that. They've gone to another big part of that handling characteristic is around the fork lug. The diameter is the same, but there's a lot more material around the axle itself on that fork lug, and that's given them a much more planted, solid feeling with that front end. The collar as well that sits on there, front and rear, is beefier and has a bigger contact point. So again, just giving you a more planted, solid feel, according to the Yamaha guys. In turn, they had to make some changes to the suspension settings. You stiffen up the chassis, and some people would think, oh, it's going to make the bike feel harsh. It actually makes it feel soft because you're forcing the suspension to do more of the work rather than the frame and the parts flexing. So they had to go in and stiffen the settings on the shock and the fork. That's actual stiffer valving, not just clicker changes. It's stiffer valving that's put into both of these to accommodate that. And they're confident it's going to make a big difference on the track. They've tried to lighten some things up. The handlebars are made of a lighter material, thinner. The rims themselves, still the same company, but they're just a little bit thinner, dropped a little bit of weight. With the battery and the electric start, the thing's still almost 2 pounds heavier, but it's to be expected when you add electric start. So they tried to offset it with some of those things, but that's where they landed. So anyway, a lot of great changes to this bike. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of them. We'll list all of the specifics at the bottom so that you can read through that literature. It's extensive. They've done a lot of work. But really, let's just give you a good impression on the track. So let's go get this thing dirty. All right, we've got some time on the 250F, the 2019 Yamaha here, and a lot of really cool changes on this bike. The engine is always been a class leader, and I think that trend is going to continue. The changes that they've made let this thing pull harder. Where I noticed it is sort of from the middle into the top. Pulls a little harder and a little further. In the past, where it would maybe hit the limiter, it pulls a little higher now and pulls harder to that point. Even got better. We changed some maps. There's a new map that goes into this thing that you can download from Yamaha. We tried a hard-hitting map, which is the kind of a little bit more bottom and mid. And if you are in a tight track, that might be a great map to go to. If you are maybe a bigger guy or you like to short shift, that hard-hitting map would be great because it picks everything up down low. You almost lose a little bit of the top, but it stuffs it all down to the bottom, so it actually really yanks out of turns. If you're a rever, if you like to rev it, again, this new, we call it the TP map, Travis Preston map, that's the one you're gonna like. And I wound up there today just because the track was pretty quick, so I'm kind of middle to top, mostly where I was riding, and really enjoyed it. Just a slight improvement kind of everywhere from last year, but really from that middle to top's where you notice it. Some of the other changes to me were the bigger differences in this bike. Subtle things, the seat being a little lower, a little narrower. I really like the way the rider compartment felt. It's firmer foam, so I don't go through and hit anymore. The way that the new air box is up here, I don't hear that sucking sound. It used to be really distracting for me until I got used to this bike, and it's really diminished. I don't know why. The top isn't any different, but just the shape of it, it's a little quieter here. So I like that. As far as the suspension goes, stuff works great. You know, the changes to that front fork lug makes such a big difference on this bike and the 450. Just when you come into a turn, and it was never as big of an issue on the 250, but sometimes the bike had a tendency to dance a little bit and lose a little predictability if you were sweeping into a turn trying to hit a rut. And that's so much better. It's very stable, very predictable. You can spot your line and go right into it without any issues. Rails around turns really nice. So small little subtle changes like that can make a huge difference. Doesn't have the suspension settings are a little firmer, which keeps the bike from pitching forward and back too much when you're braking or when you're accelerating, which can give the bike kind of a wallowy, mushy feel. So it's much more planted and solid this year, and I like that. I really like that. Again, we ran through those maps. There wasn't a whole lot. You know, this bike does give you the option of having two maps here on the bar. 450 doesn't have that. So you just hold this thing down. You can change it on the fly. I would just kind of look down off a jump, hold it down, and the light either comes on or goes off. And that bounces between whatever two maps you put in there. So I went between the hard hitting and the TP map, and I kind of went back and forth, just do a lap on each at a time. And it's nice to be able to do that, especially if you have a track that maybe if they water it, it's going to be slick early, but then get to be good traction, you can go with the softer map, start with that, and then transition into a more aggressive map. Whatever, it's just cool to have that option. The electric start worked great. That's obviously a big change for this year. As far as the way the bike feels, like I said, they've slimmed it and dropped the back. That's something all these race teams do is cut the subframe and drop the back end down. So I'm glad to see these manufacturers finally catching on and just applying that into production. Rather than people running 108, 107 millimeters of sag, you can go back to running 100 and have this thing sit in the way it's supposed to sit. So Yamaha did their homework again. This is going to be a class leader. Definitely going to be as fast a bike as you can probably buy. And if you like last year's bike, you're going to like the 2019 even better. Stay tuned for a dialed in. We'll have that coming probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And these are in your Yamaha dealers. Check them out. Look into the Blue Crew program. They've got dealers across the country from Thousand Oaks, Yamaha, Rock River, several others, one in Oklahoma, one back east, where they can help you set up your power tuner, get familiar with that app. It's such an easy app to use to connect to your bike and make changes. There's Jason Rain's riding schools. If you get a Yamaha, you can get plugged into one of those. He's a very talented guy that'll help you with riding technique and some different racing strategies and things. So look into that. These are at your Yamaha dealers now. Check them out.